The movie begins by introducing us to a scientist and his daughter, Wei. Both of them have an unusual mark on their faces that affects their appearance. The scientist has set up a laboratory in their home, where he has been conducting experiments for many years. At this moment, Wei is drawing a picture of a special flower known as a crop flower. Her father explains to her that this flower has powerful healing abilities and only grows occasionally in the depths of a jungle. He shares that he has used this flower in his experiments multiple times over the years. After years of hard work, the scientist finally creates a serum that can conceal the mark near his mouth. This serum is unique because it can blend the tissues of two different objects. To test it, he cuts a small piece of skin, applies a chemical to it, and attaches it to his face. As soon as he does this, something incredible happens. The piece of skin begins to grow. Its tissues start multiplying, and the skin slowly expands across his face. He even begins to cover his mouth, sealing over the wounds and marks he wanted to hide. Terrified by this unexpected result, the scientist panics. He had only wanted to erase the mark near his mouth, not for the skin to take over his entire face. In a state of fear, he grabs a knife and cuts the skin around his lips, trying to stop it from spreading. However, the skin reconnects itself almost instantly, refusing to stop. It continues to grow, spreading over his eyes and nose, covering more of his face. Instead, in a shocking turn of events, she picks up a knife and stabs her father, killing him. The trauma of this accidental killing leaves her broken. She has lost her only family member. Time moves forward, and Wei continues her life, focusing intensely on her studies. She excels academically, just like her father once did, and her intelligence earns her a scholarship to a prestigious university in the United States. Leaving her hometown behind, she travels to the US to live with her aunt and her cousin Angie. Angie, however, isn't thrilled about Wei's arrival because it means sharing her room, something she doesn't want to do. Despite this tension, Wei settles into the room and creates a small shrine with a picture of her father, revealing that she views him as a godlike figure. Wei keeps her father's belongings close. His notes and tools are scattered around her. It becomes clear that she hasn't let go of his work and is secretly continuing the same experiment that led to his death. The next day marks her first day at the university. On her way there, she encounters a homeless man sitting by the roadside. His face is severely disfigured, and Wei stares at him for a few moments. Kindly, the man helps her by giving her directions to the university, and she continues on her way. When Wei arrives at her class, the professor introduces her to everyone. With pride, she had scored a perfect 100% on the entrance exam, a rare achievement that hasn't happened in years. After class ends, Wei lingers in the science lab, trying to gather some supplies. The professor notices and asks what she's doing. Wei explains that she needs the materials for an experiment she's working on. The professor informs her that taking items from the lab isn't allowed unless she becomes his lab assistant, which would grant her access to the resources. Eagerly, Wei shares that her father was a scientist too, and she's determined to carry on his research. She shows the professor her father's research diary, which he begins to read. He's astonished by the contents and later looks up information about Wei's father, discovering that he was a brilliant scientist who couldn't complete his work due to a lack of funding. Meanwhile, back at home, Angie's two friends visit and start rummaging through Wei's things. They stumble upon strange items, blood-stained tools, unsettling experiment-related objects, and eerie pictures. The sight of these things frightens all three of them. The next day, Angie and her friends are still hanging out together. Wei watches them, longing for friendship like theirs. Wanting to connect, she approaches them, introduces herself, and offers to treat them to lunch. Although they're hesitant because of the mark on Wei's face, they reluctantly agree to join her at a restaurant. But when they see Wei eating in an odd way, they become uncomfortable, abandon her at the table, and leave. Undeterred, Wei packs up the leftover food, steps outside, and gives it to the homeless man she met earlier. She strikes up a conversation with him, feeling sad about her day. She confesses that the mark on her face makes her feel ugly. The man kindly reassures her, saying she's beautiful just as she is, which lifts her spirits slightly. On her way home, Wei runs into her professor, who offers her a ride. During the drive, he tells her he's written a proposal to help her finish her father's research, but he needs her permission since it was originally her father's work. Overjoyed, Wei agrees, grateful to have someone supporting her for the first time. The following day, they begin working together on the experiment. Despite their dedication over many days, the experiment fails repeatedly, their efforts seem wasted, and the professor grows frustrated, eventually deciding to abandon the project. That same day, while Wei is feeling down, one of Angie's friends, Alice, arrives at the lab. Alice is applying to be a lab assistant, and the professor accepts her. She rides home with Wei, apologizing for how she and the others treated her before. The two start to bond, and Alice shows Wei a poster she's carrying. The poster features an image of the same rare flower Wei's father used in his experiments. Wei learns that this flower is part of an exhibition nearby. Her father's words echo in her mind. He had stressed how crucial the flower was to their research. Determined, Wei decides she must get it. That night, she sneaks out to a farmhouse where the exhibition is held, steals the flower, and brings it back to the university lab. Alone in the lab, she begins her experiment anew, hoping this time she'll succeed where her father could not. Inside the science lab, Wei is completely focused on her experiment, unaware that the professor and Alice are hiding nearby, watching her every move. She carefully extracts a liquid from the rare flower she stole and mixes it into her serum. Then, she takes a sharp tool and cuts a small piece of skin from her foot. She splits the skin into two parts and applies the serum to them. To her amazement, the serum works perfectly. The two pieces of skin fuse together seamlessly. Excited by this success, from a window, the professor observes this incredible process, stunned by what he's seeing. He quickly tells Alice to leave the lab, wanting to confront Wei alone. He approaches her and asks, "What are you doing?" Wei, still thrilled, explains how the flower's extract made their experiment work. She proudly shows him the skin on her foot, proving that the serum is a success. But while this is happening, Alice, who overheard everything, grows jealous and suspicious. She secretly takes photos of Wei's strange experiment and the odd tools around her. Furious, Alice storms back into the lab, yells at Wei, and drags her out of the room. Wei, startled by Alice's sudden outburst, forgets to grab her notebook and leaves it behind in the lab. The professor, now alone, picks up the notebook with a smile, delighted by the breakthrough he just witnessed. Meanwhile, Alice sends the photos she took to Wei's cousin Angie. Back at home, Angie sees the disturbing images and flies into a rage. She starts smashing things in their shared room, furious at Wei. When Wei returns and sees the mess, she's heartbroken. Before she can process it, Angie sneaks up from behind and attacks her. Wei struggles to defend herself as Angie, consumed by anger, tries to kill her. In the chaos, Wei grabs a pen and swings it to push Angie away. The pen accidentally stabs into Angie's neck. Dead. Wei didn't mean to kill her, it was an accident, but the outcome is the same. Panicked, Wei drags Angie's body into the bathroom, her mind racing with fear and confusion. As she stares at the lifeless figure, a strange idea forms. She begins cutting skin from Angie's face, focusing on the area around her mouth. Then, she injects her serum into her own mouth and presses Angie's skin onto her face. The tissues of Wei's face and Angie's skin start to blend together, transforming Wei's appearance. When she looks in the mirror, she sees Angie staring back at her daughter. That moment, Angie's mother returns home from a trip. Mistaking Wei for her daughter, she hugs her warmly, showering her with affection. Wei realizes this could work in her favor and decides to stay in Angie's form instead of reverting to her old self. The next morning, Wei dresses in Angie's clothes, mimicking her style perfectly. She begins living Angie's life, enjoying the change. At the university, she meets Angie's boyfriend for the first time. It's the closest a boy has ever been to her, and Wei feels a rush of excitement. She starts embracing Angie's world, her friends, her boyfriend, her loving mother. She even goes on a date with Angie's boyfriend, savoring every moment. But as they grow closer, something goes wrong. Skin begins peeling off, revealing her true features underneath. The boyfriend gasps in horror at the gruesome sight and stumbles back in fear. Panicking, he runs away, not noticing a steep drop behind him. He trips, falls, and dies from the impact. Terrified by what's happened, Wei rushes home. She frantically searches for her father's notebook, believing it holds the key to making the skin transformation permanent. But the notebook isn't there, it's still with the professor. Desperate, she finds a small amount of leftover serum and injects it into her skin again. Angie's face reappears, restoring her disguise. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the professor, who is now determined to find more of the rare flower Wei used. He knows it's the secret to perfecting the experiment, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to track it down. His search for the flower begins, setting the stage for what's to come. At this moment, the professor gets a phone call from the translator working on Wei's father's notebook, turning it into English. Wei arrives at the university, hoping to retrieve her father's notebook. She searches the lab thoroughly but can't find it anywhere. The reason? The professor had handed it over to the translator. Frustrated, she calls the professor to ask about it. He admits he has the notebook but refuses to give it back, declaring that he plans to publish the experiment under his own name. Wei is furious when she hears this, but she feels powerless to stop him. With no other choice, she leaves the university quietly. As she steps outside, Wei spots Eve, a student she discovers is secretly involved with the professor. Anger toward the professor bubbles up inside her, and she decides to take it out on Eve. Pretending to be Angie, she invites Eve to the house. Eve agrees and shows up, unaware of Wei's plan. The moment Eve arrives, Wei lashes out, attacking her in a fit of rage. Eve, panicked, tries to escape and slips into the garden to hide. But Wei follows her, catching up quickly. She grabs a drill from nearby and uses it to kill Eve in a brutal attack. After the murder, Wei peels the skin from Eve's face and applies it to her own mouth with her serum. The tissues fuse, and soon, she looks just like Eve. She styles her hair like Eve's, puts on her clothes, and even mimics her mannerisms by studying Eve's phone, ensuring no one will suspect a thing. While all this is happening, the neighbor's dog starts barking loudly, disturbed by the violent scene. The noise alarms the neighbors, who call the police. When the officers arrive, they find Wei wrapped in a towel, posing as Eve. She says nothing and casually walks away, leaving them confused but without evidence to act. The next morning, Wei heads to the university disguised as Eve, feeling a rush of excitement. Eve was a popular student, and everyone greets her warmly, unaware of the truth. Later, Wei visits the professor's house, still in Eve's form, knowing it's her best chance to recover her father's notebook. The professor doesn't recognize her as Wei and welcomes her inside. She searches the house discreetly but can't find the notebook anywhere. Disappointed, she returns to her hideout. Now faced with two murders, Angie and Eve, Wei decides to cover her tracks. She drags their bodies to a pool and dumps them in, hoping to keep them hidden. Then she checks Angie and Eve's phones, discovering photos of herself with the professor that Alice had taken to ruin her reputation. Wei sees an opportunity. She uses these pictures against the professor, sending them to the university authorities via email. When the authorities learn the professor has been exploiting students for his own gain, they waste no time arresting him. But the professor's influence is strong, and the very next day, he's released on bail. Undeterred, he returns home and picks up where he left off, working on the experiment from Wei's father's notes. Following the steps carefully, he creates a serum and tests it by merging two pieces of skin. To his surprise, the chemical works, the tissues bond together perfectly, marking another success. Despite this achievement, the professor isn't satisfied. At that moment, Wei, still disguised as Eve, shows up at his house. The professor, thrilled to see Eve, invites her in and seats her in the living room. He excuses himself to grab some food, leaving her alone. Wei seizes the chance to search for her notebook. She rummages through the house and finally finds it tucked away in a cabinet. Nearby, she spots the fresh batch of serum the professor just made. Without hesitation, she grabs both the notebook and the serum and bolts out of the house. The professor grows suspicious as she flees. When he checks the cabinet moments later, He realizes the serum he worked so hard to create is gone, sparking a wave of frustration and alarm. Late at night, Wei is at home, no longer wearing any disguise, her real face exposed. Suddenly, Alice arrives, looking upset. She tells Wei that both of their friends have vanished under mysterious circumstances, and she's heartbroken about it. Wei, pretending to care, gives Alice a comforting hug. Alice, still shaken, says she needs a drink of water. She walks to the fridge and opens it, only to freeze in horror. Inside, she sees the chopped up body parts of her missing friends, preserved in the cold. Panic sets in, and she lets out a piercing scream. Before her cries can alert anyone or she can run to tell someone, Wei grabs a clay-soaked cloth and presses it over Alice's face. Alice struggles, but the cloth cuts off her air, and soon she stops moving. Wei has suffocated her to death. Unlike her previous killings, Wei doesn't bother hiding this one. Just then, the doorbell rings, interrupting the grim moment. It's the professor, standing outside. He notices the door is unlocked and steps inside. Wei sits in the room, her posture odd and unsettling. When she spots the professor, she bursts into eerie laughter. The professor feels uneasy seeing her like this, but Wei suddenly congratulates him, saying their experiment has succeeded. This cheers him up, and he smiles. But her mood shifts, and she snaps angrily. This wasn't your experiment, it was my dad's. The professor brushes off her outburst and heads toward the fridge, intending to grab his serum. As he swings the door open, he's hit with the shocking sight of the frozen bodies. His breath catches in his throat. Wei acts fast. She pulls out a syringe filled with a sedative and jabs it into the professor's neck. He collapses, unconscious, within seconds. Later, when he wakes up, he's horrified to find that Wei has stripped the skin from his entire body while he was out. He screams in agony, his voice raw with terror. Wei calmly begins applying her serum to his exposed flesh. Then she takes a piece of skin and places it on him. Just like in the movie's opening scene with her father, the skin starts growing on its own, spreading across the professor's body. She inserts a straw into his mouth to let him breathe, but the skin quickly covers everything else. It creeps over his face, sealing his airways despite the straw. His breathing becomes labored, and within moments, he suffocates and dies. Before his death, the professor's loud screams echo outside, catching the attention of a neighbor. Worried, the neighbor calls the police. As sirens approach, Wei panics. She knows she's in danger of being caught, so she flees the house. The police spot her running and give chase, determined to apprehend her daughter in her escape. Wei stumbles upon the homeless man she'd met before. Desperate, she begs him for help. He'd always liked her because of her kindness toward him in the past, so he agrees. He hides her under his makeshift bed, and when the police search the area, they can't find her. Relieved, Wei sits up, but in her rush, the vial of serum she's carrying slips from her grasp and shatters on the ground. The liquid spills out, soaking into her skin and the homeless man's nearby. Almost instantly, their bodies react. The serum fuses their tissues. Together, their flesh begins to meld, twisting and combining in unnatural ways. Helpless, Wei watches as they transform into a single, grotesque creature, a monstrous blend of the two of them. She's trapped in this new form, unable to undo what's happened. As she sits there, dazed, her aunt appears, searching for her missing daughter Angie. Wei, now a monster, can't bring herself to reveal the truth about Angie's fate. The story draws to a close with this haunting image, leaving their fates unresolved.
Feel that cold dread creeping up your spine? Don't let it claim you. Hit that like button to ward off the darkness. Share this cursed tale with your friends, or the shadows might come for them next. And if you dare subscribe, you'll join the restless souls who never miss a scream. Do it now, before the silence takes you.